Come in to me, show us the way. I'm caught between the wind and parts of the unknown. Adored between two worlds, a sight to see. It feels like everything is moving. Thank
Alrighty. Next assignment. Now that we've gotten used to using vanishing points in a direct, explicit fashion, let's look at removing those training wheels and trying to estimate our convergences a little. You'll notice this pattern to my approach. I'll introduce certain tools and tricks and steadily take them away as we strip these concepts back to their core.
Next, we're tackling the rough perspective. So in this one, we are not using a ruler except for your horizon and your frames. So basically all of the lines constructing our boxes are freehand. So again, we're going to have our page and we are drawing our frames just like with the plotted perspective one. And we draw a horizon. So this exercise is to be done in 1 point perspective. I've seen some people try and do it in 2 point, and I always chastise them for it because the instructions say 1 point, so do it in 1 point. If you do it in 2, it's going to make the exercise a little bit more muddy. The point of the exercise is to learn to estimate the angle of your lines so that they converge towards a certain vanishing point. If you're doing it towards 2, it kind of just dilutes the effectiveness of what you're doing because we want to focus all on converging towards 1 point. So because it's 1 point, that means that our horizontals and our verticals are parallel in the standard way. Our horizontals run perfectly parallel to the horizon line, and our verticals run perfectly perpendicular to it. So we can just draw out some rectangles. And again, we are not drawing cubes. Remember, you'll be doing this freehand using the ghosting method, so you'll actually be drawing your points, ghosting back and forth. I am using some Photoshop trickery for speed's sake, because I don't want to make these videos too long. So let's say we've got these rectangles out here. Now all we have to do is kind of figure out how we are going to make them go back towards the vanishing point. Now I don't want to plot a line all the way back. What I want to do is I want to put out my next point so that it kind of goes off towards the vanishing point. I'm kind of estimating, but I'm really just trying to eyeball this. Maybe here. And if you ever find that you are in a position where you don't know what the next line you want to draw is going to be, don't just guess. This exercise requires no guesswork beyond how you're aligning your lines to the vanishing point. If you don't know where your line needs to go, then you aren't thinking through it enough. So there are three major behaviors for your lines, and it depends on which part of the box you are drawing, or which line of the box you are drawing. If you are drawing a horizontal line, like I said, all horizontal lines run parallel to the horizon line. If you're drawing a vertical one, they run perpendicular to the horizon line. And all other lines, like the depth lines of the box, will converge towards the vanishing point. That's the tricky part of this exercise. So we do know that this one wants to be straight. I'm doing a shitty job because I'm not rotating my page. So as always, since you're using the ghosting method here, you are fully expected to be rotating your page to make those angles of approach as comfortable as possible. You'd think I wouldn't mispronounce that word, considering how it's my favorite word in the world, or at least uncomfortable is. So I'm going to finish off this one box, and then I'm just going to move on to the next stage of this exercise, because I don't want to take too much time, and I'm hungry. All right, so now that we've done some of these boxes, the next step, and I prefer that you do this after you've completed a full page of rough perspective box exercises, meaning like several frames worth. The next thing I want you to do is take a pen of a different color and actually take these lines and extend them out towards, like with a ruler, not freehand. Extend them out like this, towards the vanishing point. Well, let's do that in a different layer. No, don't delete it. So extend it out towards the horizon line. And do this for every single depth line, meaning the ones that are intended to go towards the vanishing point. So what this shows you is just how far off your estimations are, and not only that, but also where you tend to make more mistakes of this sort. So like I said before, we are not expecting to be able to do perfect work. We are getting the gist of what we're supposed to be aiming for. And in this case, we can see more clearly where our mistakes tend to happen. So as you can see, I have a shit ton of mistakes. I've made a lot of blunders in terms of estimating what my angle should be in order to converge towards the vanishing point. And this really brings it to light. So one thing that I don't want you to do here is don't see what the line would have been had you actually drawn it correctly. I mean, it's somewhat useful, but the extending your lines towards the horizon line approach is way more effective, because you actually see you can actually tell just how much of a distance there is between where you should have been and where you were. So being able to compare your mistake and what would have been correct is much more valuable. So for this exercise, again, fill up your frame with boxes, and then fill up your page with frames of these boxes, and then upon the completion of each page, go back and apply this correction method with a different colored pen or pencil or whatever. And don't be upset if you find that you made a lot of mistakes, because it's completely normal. We always when we approach this, we tend to have our estimation of perspective drift, especially as we move further out towards, like, away from the vanishing point. And so doing this will both inform you on what your mistakes are and show you what you need to improve on.
Oh my goodness. Did he say we could use a pencil for that last part? What? Dang. That's a little edgy. It's a little out there for me. I don't know if I can bring myself to do that. Oh, anyway. Now that we've gotten used to vanishing points in a direct, explicit fashion, let's look at removing those training wheels and try to estimate our convergences a little. You'll find this pattern to my approach. I'll introduce certain tools and tricks and steadily take them away as we strip these concepts back to their core. As before, draw a frame on the page and a horizon across it. Place a single vanishing point on it this time, as we'll be working 1 point perspective. Place this vanishing point somewhere more central. It doesn't need to be dead center. We don't put it too far off to either side. You may use a ruler or a straight edge for the frame and horizon line. Every line after this point should be drawn freehand using the ghosting method, where the plotted perspective had to start off with the edge we were facing. This time, since using 1 point, we'll start off with the face. In 1 point, one of the horizontal vanishing points of our boxes is going to be at infinity, as will be one of the vertical vanishing points. As such, all of our vertical lines will be perpendicular to the horizon, and all of the horizontal lines will run parallel to it, leaving only one set of lines that converges towards our single vanishing point. Let's draw a series of rectangles within the frame. Each rectangle will serve as the front face of a different box and will define their height and width. Now things get a little tricky. The main limitation of this exercise is you're not allowed to draw all the way back to the vanishing point. Get a great deal of estimation. It's rough, not exact. Start with just one line coming off the corner. Draw back towards the vanishing point, but only as far as the length you wish to give the box, and don't cheat by making them super long. We're not aiming for cubes, so the length doesn't need to match the height or width of your rectangles from the previous step. Again, use the ghosting method. Yeah. Now that all 3 dimensions of your boxes are established, it's just a matter of figuring out the rest of the puzzle. Place points on the page for the remaining 3 corners of the back box. Remember that your horizontal lines are still running parallel to the horizon. Verticals are running perpendicular to it, and your depth lines are converging towards the horizon. With all of this in mind, try to place your points on the page in a way that maintains all of these relationships. None of this is guesswork. There are specific rules and behaviors you follow. Yep, makes sense. Draw the remainder of your lines connecting the points with the ghosting method, and that's all there is to it. Do it again for the rest of the rectangles in your frame. And do the red line thing just to the horizon line. There's a good chance you'll find them not intersecting with the vanishing point. And that the further away you are from the vanishing point, the further off they might be in their alignment. This is normal. It helps a great deal to go over our work to help identify where our estimation tends to drift so we know what to focus on during our next attempt. This exercise is all about separating you from the explicit reliance on plotting everything back to your vanishing point and getting used to the fact that your parallel lines converge due to the nature of perspective with the innumerable vanishing points that may be necessary in a given scene. We can't necessarily rely on all of them being explicitly drawn out, especially if we don't want to spend the better part of our lives plotting it all out. As such, there's a lot of value in learning about how the lines themselves behave on their own, as well as coming to appreciate the fact that oftentimes close enough is more than good enough. Even though you've got mistakes in your estimations, the boxes still are likely to look pretty close to correct, and ultimately there are more important things than perfection when it comes to getting an idea across with visual means. Mistake. Guessing. When adhering to a strict perspective system, you immediately give up a fair bit of flexibility. If everything is drawn according to the same two vanishing points, it will all be placed on a set grid. Yes. There's a vast advantage to this, however, because the orientation of objects becomes restricted. We limit the possible behavior of every line to only a few options. Many students ignore this fact, however they lay out their vanishing points and assume they'll know by instinct how every line should behave. Instead of knowing, they guess. If you ever catch yourself guessing or uncertain about how to draw a line, stop and step back. Take a look at the system you're working with and think about the short list of possible behaviors. We've got the 3 from the video. There are simply no other options. Every single line will adhere to one of these behaviors. It's fair to say that in one-point perspective, you can have lines that don't run parallel or perpendicular to the horizon, but these rules are going to hold fast here. However, because of the purposes of this exercise, all of our boxes are going to run parallel to the ground plane rather than being slanted or angled. Mistake. Don't plot the lines back to the vanishing point and use one-point perspective. Alright. Example homework. There we go. Alrighty. Let's see. That got a little bit longer. Back to it, I suppose. Alrighty, that's it for today.